Hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and today I am so excited to share with you my Flossy Shawl. My friends, this shawl has been a long time coming, like almost a whole entire year long time coming, and so I am thrilled that Flossy is finally out in the world. I do want to be sure to encourage you to stay till the end of this video where I'll be sharing a style guide with lots of options of how to wear your Flossy shawl, and I'll be giving a very special discount code for you to go purchase your Flossy shawl. And who knows, there might even be a little bonus in there too, so I hope you'll stick around all the way to the end. All right, friends, here she is, the gorgeous Flossy Shawl. Let's talk about the inspiration. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on designers to come up with a really enticing story of how they were inspired to come up with their designs. But I think the truth is that if you're a yarn nerd like I am, sometimes you just love to look through stitch books. Sometimes I get an inspiration and I go looking through a stitch book to bring my idea to life. But other times I'm flipping through a stitch book and inspiration strikes. And that's what happened with the Flossy Shawl. Well, kind of. The Flossy Shawl is part of a collection of 3 shawls that I'm calling the Sister Shawls. The very first shawl in the Sister Shawl collection is the Poppy Shawl. The Poppy Shawl is a very large, traditional-ish triangle shawl. It's got a really nice long depth, some really beautiful stripes, both in texture and in color. But as you know, my favorite shawl shape is the boomerang shape. And so this wraps up and around instead of being the more traditional straight across the top triangle shawl. I love this crescent shape because it just so naturally wraps around your body, making it super duper easy to wear. So the truth is, I was craving, as I do every spring, a really nice new spring shawl. And as I was looking through a stitch guide, I saw this beautiful lace border and knew that I needed it on a shawl immediately. Because I wanted to be able to wear this shawl most of the year, and because I'm a little short, a lot short, I didn't want the body of the shawl to be too bulky so that I could wrap it up around me without feeling overwhelmed by the size of the shawl. So I created this nice open body and added just one layer of that lace. It changes and expands as you go down from the end of the shawl to the very tip. And so it's a really gorgeous, slightly modified version of the lace that I found in the stitch guide. After I made the Poppy Shawl, I knew that I wanted something on the smaller side, say a little sister to the Poppy Shawl. That's when I came up with the Zoe Shawl. The Zoe Shawl is even more clean and simple with that nice open stitching all across the body and a nice little lace edge. The whole entire shawl is significantly smaller, as you can see, with a much shorter depth. However, it is really long in the wingspan. This makes the Zoe Shawl super easy to wear from spring through summer and back into fall. With this super wide wingspan, you can either hang it nice and loose around your neck when the weather is hot, or drape it easily over your shoulders and it'll stay put. Or as the weather starts to cool, or if you're in the spring and it's chilly in the mornings, it's got enough wingspan that you can wrap it nicely around your neck several times to stay nice and cozy too. Once I had the big sister and the little sister, I thought I needed a middle sister. Now, I can say this because I'm a middle sister, but I knew that this final version of the sister trio needed to be a little more dramatic. I envisioned the nice, soothing, simple stitch used in the other 2 shawl bodies in this one as well, but accented by a super dramatic lace edge at the bottom. As you can see, the Flossy Shawl has 3 stunning layers of this amazing lace. But I've done something that I think is pretty ingenious. I don't know about you, but I am always most enthusiastic about my project when I start out. Because of that enthusiasm I tend to have at the beginning of projects, I wanted to work the most intense part of the shawl first. So this shawl is actually worked from the lace down, and then it's worked from the lace up to the top. That means that by the time you've been working on this shawl for a little while, you have both the option to customize how tall your shawl is, and you've already polished off all those gorgeous rows of lace. All right, let's talk about the yarn. Because I wasn't doing my introduction videos when I released my Poppy and my Zoe shawls, and because I love to support other small business owners, and because I think you might be a little curious about what yarn I used, I'm going to give a quick overview of the yarn I used in my Poppy and my Zoe shawls, and then we'll go in depth about my Flossy shawl. My Poppy shawl is so special to me for several reasons. The yarn is dyed by a wonderful Chicago dyer, Crochet. Highly recommend her yarn, and I got to meet her when I went to Stitch Up Chicago last year, and she is just the sweetest. This is also special to me because I picked this yarn up when I was having a girls' weekend with my Crochetmas ladies, and so this yarn will always remind me of the marvelous time we had. I love how this icy blue and cool gray have wonderful pops of bold colors in them and really tie in the hot pink. Now, unfortunately, I can tell you that this is Crochet yarn and I can tell you that this is her fingering base, but I long ago recycled the yarn bands, and so I'm not 100% sure what these colorways are or even if she still carries them. I still very much recommend her gorgeous yarn though. Once I had added that hot pink border onto my Poppy shawl, I knew I wanted the Zoe shawl to be bold as well. That is when I saw this yarn from my wonderful friend Tanya of Cornbread and Honey. She released this gorgeous, bold, punchy colorway last spring, and I immediately snapped some of it up. Then I asked her about some colors that would coordinate with this gorgeous, bold yarn. She made several suggestions, and I fell in love with this stunning, stunning purple. I believe this purple is called Galaxy, and oh gosh, the bright color, it's something about love. You will absolutely recognize this when you see it on her website if it's still around. Highly encourage you, if you are feeling brave, to buy this bold color. It makes me happy every time I see it. For my Flossy shawl, I ended up diving back into my stash and pulling out 3 skeins of yarn that had been waiting for the perfect project. This yarn is by Miss Babs, but I didn't purchase it from Miss Babs, though they have been wonderful, and I will definitely be purchasing from them in the future. These 3 skeins of yarn I actually got from a yarn dyer who was de-stashing some of her personal yarn stash, so I snapped them right up. When I purchased these 3 colors, I had no idea what I was going to use them for, but I did think that they would make a really lovely fade, and I think they have. 2 of the 3 skeins were the same yarn base, Yummy 2-ply from Miss Babs, and that is this top color that is called Japanese Maple, and this bottom color that is called Autumn Toad Lily. The Yummy 2-ply is a 100% superwash merino base that has 400 yards for every 110 grams. This middle colorway is on their Tarte base, which is slightly different than the Yummy 2-ply. The main thing that makes it different is its fiber content, which contains both nylon and tencel, which means it's just a little bit shiny. The Tarte yarn base is 75% superwash merino, 15% nylon, and 10% tencel. I think that low amount of tencel gives this a very subtle sheen and sparkle, which I love because I'm not really a big sparkle person. I mean, at least not in my yarn. Earrings, yes. Yarn, not so much. This middle colorway name makes me laugh because it is just so different from the other 2. Remember, this bottom colorway is called Autumn Toad Lily, and this top one is Japanese Maple. The middle one, however, is called Zombie Prom. Even though there are different yarn bases and different colored way names, I think the three colors really blend together nicely. You can see I start at the bottom with the Autumn Toad Lily, fade a few rows into the Zombie Prom, work up, 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 until I get to that nice dark Japanese maple at the top. So gorgeous. All right, let's talk hooks. I should say, let's talk hook, because as complicated as I made it with 8 different colorways from 3 different dyers covering the 3 shawls, you only need one hook to make all 3 of them. For the Poppy, the Zoe, and the Flossy Shawl, you will need a USG 4.0 millimeter hook. Let's talk customizing your Flossy Shawl. Friends, rectangle shawls are the easiest shape to customize. The only thing that makes customization of the Flossy Shawl a little challenging is the lace bottom. The great news is the pattern includes instructions on how to expand or reduce the length of your shawl, and since you're working the lace part first, if something goes a little awry, you won't have to wait until the end to figure out if you've mixed up your stitch count. So with a little sense of adventure, I think you'll actually find adjusting the length of your Flossy Shawl to be pretty simple. I think that customizing the main body of your shawl is even easier, and I can think of a bunch of ways that you could do it. As you can see, the body of the shawl alternates between more open sections and closer closed sections. The order of those rows is something I put together to fit my personal preference as a designer, but you could absolutely mix them up in any way you wanted to. You could also easily adjust by adding or subtracting rows from your body of your shawl to make it taller or shorter. I think this body of your shawl is also a great place to play with color. You do not have to fade between 3 colors. You can absolutely add as many or as few colors as you'd like. The other great thing about customizing your shawl is I do include the amount of yarn by yardage that it takes to create this lace border. I had a couple testers who chose to use a gradient yarn, and so they worked out how much of that gradient they would need to use to work the lace and then still work the body up, moving through the gradient in the correct way. It's a pretty amazing look, and I'm not gonna lie, it definitely makes me want to make another Flossy Shawl. All right, we are at my favorite part, styling your Flossy Shawl. I know that I've said this more than once, but this big open body of this shawl makes it so wearable. You can use the length to cover yourself to stay really warm, or it easily scrunches up to be essentially a smaller shawl without a ton of bulk. So let me show you just a few of my favorite ways to wear this. This shawl is so big and glorious, it can almost be worn as a cardigan. All you need to do is take the right side facing towards you, wrap it around yourself so it's about halfway on each side, and then let it drape down over your arms and across your front. It's almost like a whole entire cardigan in a shawl. And as you can see, it goes past my elbows here, but to keep it so that it's maybe even a little easier, you can scrunch up the top of the shawl until it comes just to your elbow so it's not in the way when you move your arms around. And then this whole section becomes almost like a shawl collar on a cardigan. It's so cozy. If you want to make sure that it stays closed like a cardigan, you can definitely put a shawl pin or even just a brooch there to hold it all in place. A little toggle clasp would also be good. In similar manner to this, you can also wrap it around. Start with one end a little shorter down the front, giving yourself some extra shawl to wrap across your body and around. And that gives you all of the colors showing up front here and keeps you nice and cozy up around your neck. I've got a pretty decent amount of fabric up over my shoulder there, but if you're concerned about fussing with it during the day, I hate having to do that. You can go ahead and put a brooch or a shawl pin there and hold it in place. This is quite a bit of fabric, but if you have a decent sized shawl cuff, you can also scrunch this up at your shoulder and place your shawl cuff around the whole thing, just like that. This also looks amazing worn backwards, like I've been doing for most of this video. To accomplish that, you just want to make sure you have the right side of your lace facing out. You'll know it's the right side by those gorgeous post stitches showing. And then you can either scrunch up the top and lay it shorter around your neck, almost like a lace collar, or you can extend it down if you're feeling chilly. And you've got a good amount of fabric back there to keep you warm and to stay in place. Again, though, you do have enough fabric that if you want to, you can take your one end, throw it over your shoulder, and then wrap all the way around and back to the front with the other side, and still have all of that fabric coming down over you like almost a little poncho. It'll keep you nice and cozy. You could also take this end and tuck it in to help it stay put too. You can see I have a nice drape around my neck, leaving this nice and open so it won't keep me too hot, but I can always tighten that up by finding my far end and pulling it up so that that is closer to my neck, and then even wrapping around the front and tucking that in the side too. Then I am super duper cozy. If you're looking for more of a spring scarf vibe, you can just take your shawl and scrunch up the top. You can either fold the darker colors forward for some big contrast to your lace, or tuck it under for less contrast to your lace. Then you're just going to take it with the lace facing across your shoulder, pull it up so that it's the length you want it, wrap it around the front, and then flip it back over your shoulder. And I have plenty of fabric here to either wear it close to my neck, or if I just loosen this a little bit, it can be more for the prettiness and less for the coziness. If you're worried about this coming apart, you can just take your shawl pin and work it through that fabric, and then it's not going anywhere. One of the most fun ways I have found to wear this shawl is what I call a faux triangle shawl. What you're going to do is make sure that your lace is facing out again. Then you're going to take one end, place it over your shoulder. Then you're going to wrap the rest of the shawl up and around your neck, making sure that you keep this triangle right here. I'm going to wrap all the way back around until I get my two ends together here. Then you can either just tie a little knot. If you're worried about that knot staying in place, you can take a shawl cuff and just wrap it around those layers that you've knotted, and that will help keep everything nice and secure. But if you don't like how that knot distorts the shape of the triangle here, what I recommend doing is using a shawl pin. That way you can keep this nice and flat up over your shoulder, keeping that triangle shape, and then laying your end over the top of it, placing your shawl pin on top, going through all your layers, and that'll hold everything nice and securely in place. You can just take that little end and make it disappear under your other layer, and voila, it's like a triangle scarf. Thank you so much for joining me today as I introduced my Flossy Shawl along with its sisters, the Poppy and the Zoe Shawl. I hope you have fallen in love with these shawls as much as I have. As a little thank you for sticking around until the end, I would love to give you a special discount code. If you would like to purchase one of the sister shawls, either the Flossy, the Poppy, or the Zoe, you can use the code LACE20 to save 20%. If you find that you love more than one shape and you would like to buy two or all three of the sister shawls, you can use the code ALL25 to save 25% off of two or three of the shawl patterns. Those coupon codes are good on both Ravelry and Etsy. Links to all the patterns in the show notes below, and those coupon codes last April 4th through April 9th, 2024, so act fast. We have started our second annual spring shawl along, and we are having so much fun making shawls. I'll put links below so that you can join the shawl along on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email if you want to join us in the Discord chat. In honor of the spring shawl along for the entire month of April, while the shawl along lasts, I am giving 15% off all of my shawl patterns. So whether you want to snag a couple shawl patterns today or next week, as long as it's before the end of April, you can use the code SPRING15 on Ravelry and Etsy to save 15% off of any of my shawl patterns. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy crafting!